going to begin our latest installment of Ask the Broker. This is our elite real estate training here at Miranda Executive Realty. Before we jump into it today, we're going to take a moment for our shameless plug. If you are an agent at another brokerage and you'd like to learn more about this company, see what we can do to help you take your business to the next level, please scan this QR code or look for a link in the below, and we'll get in touch with you. As always, please save your questions, comments, really anything that you have for the end. If you want to, you can put some comments in the chat or questions in the chat, and we'll try to get to them. But worst case, we'll definitely get to you by the end. And finally, a quick disclaimer that I'm Joseph Miranda. I am a licensed real estate broker here in the state of Florida, but I am not here to give legal advice, accounting advice, really any advice at all. Please, make sure that you're informing your professionals at whatever level, or you're speaking with them before making any decisions. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into our training here. Today, we're going to talk about communication. The name of our training today is Beyond Words. And these are, what we're going to talk about is all of the stages of a real estate transaction that we go through, and how we believe an agent would have proper communication with the individual. Before we go into the formal part of the training, just a couple of things. Number one, something that we all probably know, something we're going to dive into a little bit deeper, is communication is more than just words, right? We already know that, body language, the tone, the way we say things can definitely affect, how that message is received. But also, knowing when, where, how, and why you are having this communication, right? Saying something that's out of order or that doesn't necessarily correlate with the current circumstances could end up, being confusing. So while communication is key, what we really want to make sure of is that the communication that we have is relevant and that, it applies to the current situation. And then one real quick pro tip, something that all of our agents are taught, something that we train everybody here for, is if a client has to ask you for an update, then you've already failed. So, we want to be proactive with our communication. We want to communicate with our customer, or communicate with the agent on either side, the lender, really everybody that's involved in the transaction. We want to be communicating with them in a way that they never have to ask us, hey, what's going on? When a client reaches out to us and they ask us and they say, hey, what's going on in this transaction, or what's this or what's that, then we failed. So that's kind of the pro tip of the day. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So if you've heard me speak about anything, you've heard all of these terms, right? These are the 20%, right? If you have the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, this is the 20% of a sales cycle: lead generation, lead follow-up, going on appointments, writing and negotiating contracts, and closing those sales, right? These are those big overarching umbrella topics that we are constantly training on, that we dive deep into. We may talk about different lead generation techniques, different ways that we, our different strategies on lead follow-up, a lot of stuff on going on appointments and writing and negotiating contracts. Those kind of never end. And then we're always talking about getting sales closed, because even though you've got a contract, you still have to work through the contingencies, and you still have to work to get that contract closed. And in order to get from one step to the next, or even to get to that first step, you need communication. The way that you communicate is going to be the thing that is going to effectively take you from lead generation into permission to follow up, or directly to that appointment. When you're on that appointment, you communicate effectively, it's going to allow you to write that contract, right? So few key points, right? The 7 C's of effective communication, the things to keep in mind when you're communicating. A few of these really stand out to me, right? It needs to be clear, your message, whatever you're trying to say, whatever message you're trying to convey, it needs to be clear, it needs to be concise, and it needs to be courteous, right? Coherent, it better make sense. and it better be correct, but really clear, concise, and courteous. You could be clear, concise, concrete, correct, coherent, complete, but if you're not courteous, if you say something in a rude way or it comes off sounding rude, then the entire message is going to get lost because they're going to be stuck on the way that you made them feel, right? People, there's the saying, I forget who said it, I think maybe it was Mother Teresa, people will not always remember what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel, right? So courteous is a big part of it. If you don't know how to write a courteous message, just use AI, ChatGPT. A lot of times I will just word vomit a response and then I'll ask AI to make it sound more polite, to make it sound more professional, whatever it needs to be. And, it does a pretty good job at doing that. So the other part of communication are, there's 5 ways that we're communicating with somebody. And not all of these will translate, over the phone, and some of these we're communicating and we don't even realize that we're communicating in these ways, right? Number 1 is your language, right? The words that you use, right? Your choice of words, how you're putting those words together. People that are very precise with words require, precise language. You can't use the wrong word in the wrong context because it's going to give a different, a different meaning, right? It's kind of like the word apart, right? If that's 2 words, it's very different than if you take the word and put it together and it's apart, right? So make sure that your language is correct. Make sure that you understand the meaning of the words that you're saying, the vocabulary of what you're doing, right? There's visual communication. This happens a lot in our advertising, in our marketing, and the things that we do. You'll notice it in the movies that you watch. If you pay attention, when a movie is trying to give you, or when the director of a movie is trying to make you feel a certain way, they'll put certain color tones. They're going to put, it's either going to be a vibrant, bright colors, or it's going to be, darker, more gloomy colors, or somewhere in between, right? The visuals of what they're trying to make you feel in that moment, well, that's also part of their communication, right? That's and this is what we need to keep in mind when we're trying to communicate something, maybe about a real estate property that we have for sale, maybe in the marketing, what do we want our customers to feel, right? That's going to be in the visual. The surroundings, this one maybe not so much, and it kind of goes back to the visuals of it, but what's around you when you're communicating, right? Or what are the details that you're pointing out? That can be, that can kind of range from, really anything, but, clear signage, the open house flow, things like that. This is how it relates to real estate here. And then oral, right? So how does it sound, right? Again, maybe it's not what you said, it's how you said it. You can say the same words, you can give that same message, that you're trying to convey, but if you say it in a rude tone as opposed to maybe a more helpful, productive tone, it's going to be taken 2 totally different ways, right? You could tell somebody that they have bad breath in a way that they're going to say, "Oh, thank you for letting me know. Do you have a piece of gum?" Or in a way that's going to, make them feel bad about themselves, or in a way that's going to offend them, right? So it's the way that you say something. And then there's body language, right? The gestures. Your body language says a lot. If you're talking to somebody with your arms crossed and, and you're closed in, then, that says something, as opposed to if you're talking and, you're kind of like wide open chest, right? So be aware of your body language, be aware of, your facial features as you're saying something, be aware of, pretty much everything that's kind of going on with your body when you're speaking. People are going to pick up on the body language. They're going to sense, in something, they're going to sense either your confidence or your lack of confidence in, the way that you speak, the words that you say, the way that you say it, the way that you stand, the way that you present yourself in your body language is going to make a big difference in the way that the message is received, right? So these are kind of your big overarching concepts on communication, the things to, that we want, that you want to just be aware of when you're communicating. But let's talk about, going back to the 5 stages of the sale, right? All the way from lead generation to getting it closed, and actually even beyond those stages, what are we thinking about when we're generating leads, right? So lead generation, what is lead generation? It's looking for a lead, right? It's trying to convert that lead to an appointment. So whether you're door knocking, whether you're cold calling, whether you're doing an open house, right? Whatever it is, you're constantly coming in communication with these leads, right? So what are you trying to do when you're with these leads? You're trying to do two things at the onset of that conversation. Well, you're really trying to do one, but if you can't do one, then you're going to go with the second best option, right? So what are you trying to do in the lead generation process? Number one, you're trying to get an appointment. That's the goal. If you can't get the appointment, you at least need to connect with them enough that they give you permission to follow up with them, right? So when are you doing this? Really, in the beginning, and especially after every single objection until you're ready to end that call, right? So, I don't know, I'm going to list it with another agent, right? Well, what's your objection handler? And then close them for the appointment, right? We push a lot on scripts. We do our power hour every single morning, 9 a.m. until 10 a.m., right? And in those scripts, or in that call while we're training, we have some key points that you need to hit. But the number one reason why you're making that phone call in the first place is to get that appointment. And if you can't get the appointment, then you need to make enough of a connection with them to allow you to follow up, right? We highly recommend using a script, right? Now, do you have to use the script verbatim for the rest of your life? No, but you should use the script verbatim at least until you internalize it, until you have memorized that script and you can say it without having it in front of you. You should say the script, read the script exactly how it is. The objection handlers, exact same thing. Read them exactly how they are until you've internalized them. Once you've internalized them, then you can make them your own, and they are going to sound more natural the way that you speak them. But you need to get comfortable with communicating in this style, with handling the objection in this way, right? In the beginning, you always want to acknowledge their problem, relate, empathize. Find the problem and be the solution. You're not going to go to somebody and say, well, I can do this, and this. They may not care about any of those things that you can do in the beginning of the relationship. Find out what they're looking for, find out where their pain points are, and be the solution to those things. When you're calling them, make sure you're taking notes. Whether it's during the call, while you're speaking to them, or at the end of the call, always take detailed notes, right? Because if you don't get the appointment, or even if you do get the appointment, they're going to tell you key details, where they're going, by when, how they plan to get there, why they're going there, all of these things. And if we're lead generating at a high level, there could be thousands of people in our database. And if there's thousands of people in our database, and let's say we're speaking to hundreds of them on a regular basis, annually, we can't remember all the details. Sometimes I've got people on my lead follow-up system that I've spoke with a few times, but I don't even recognize the name. And I go in there and I'm like, oh yeah, I did have this conversation, right? So we just make sure as you're going through that you're taking as detailed notes as possible, so that if you don't get the appointment, or even if you do get the appointment, but let's say you don't, and you need to follow up with them, you call them back and you can go over those notes, and they're going to remember that conversation. Something for the entire process: mimic their pace and their choice of words. If somebody says, I know, after everything, then maybe use that a little bit with them, relate with them on that. If somebody speaks very rapidly, very fast, don't speak necessarily as fast as they do, but pick up the pace, because if you speak slowly, they're probably going to get annoyed. And vice versa. If somebody is speaking with you very slowly, you don't want to speak to them in a very fast pace, because they may not even be able to keep up with you, right? So pay attention to the pace at which people speak. Speak at their pace. Maybe slightly faster, slightly slower, depending on how you feel about, if they speak super slow and you just can't speak that slow, speak as slow as you can. If they speak super fast, you don't want to speak fast anyway because your words are going to jumble, right? Again, get the need behind the need. That just comes through asking questions. Questions are a great way to communicate. And then ABC, right? Always be closing. Every time you have something, and have your closing line ready. We've got scripts full of all of the different closes, and they're all similar with little nuances and differences. The hard close, the soft close, the assumptive close, all of these closes, they're all pretty much the same, right? Sorry about this. We lost the screen here, but it will be back shortly here. All right, so moving on. Let's go to lead follow-up, right? So lead generation, if you're generating the lead, your goal is either to get the appointment or get permission to follow up, right? Number one, you always want the appointment. You always want to be in front of them. You always want them to know that there is a real human behind the voice. You want them to see you. You want to shake hands with them. You want to touch them, right? So if you can't get the appointment, you are going to ask for follow-up, right? Okay, Mr. or Mrs. Smith, it sounds like, yeah, you guys are, probably way too far out thinking about selling for us to have an appointment today, but would it be okay if I give you a call back in maybe 3 or 4 months, just touch base and see how things are going? Sure, no problem. You can do that, right? And if you did your lead generation effectively, you took notes. So when you follow up with them, you're going to play off of those notes. Hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this is Joe Miranda. We spoke a few months ago about your house on whatever. You told me that, you weren't quite ready to sell at that point. You're thinking about going to Orlando because, your son moved up there and he took your grandchildren with. You really want to be around your grandchildren. Just following up now to see if that's still what you're looking to do. And then just let the conversation go from there. On your lead follow-up, there's not so much a script. You're still going to hear the objections, but now you're building the relationship. You have to build the relationship because they're out into the future. You've called them back in a few months. You've called them back in a few months, and they still have not sold. They're still talking to you. So if nothing else, they're at least going to let you apply for the job. Not guaranteeing that you're going to get the job, but you can at least apply for the job. So what are you doing during your lead follow-up? Same thing. You're always closing for the appointment if it's appropriate, if it makes sense. And then you're maintaining that relationship. And you're getting more key information, right? You're always looking for one more detail. You're always looking for what is that pain point, right? What is the thing, like, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, their son moved out to Orlando, took their grandchildren, right? So, how often are you seeing your grandchildren? What's what's going on with that? And, so you're digging a little bit, you're looking for that pain point, right? Not that we're looking to manipulate them, but we're helping them to stay focused on the goal. You told me that you were looking to sell your house by the end of this year so you can get up to Orlando so that you could spend the Christmas with your grandchildren. Is that still the case? Right? So you're going to be following up with that. The other thing on a lead follow-up, one of the keys is if they say call me back in 6 months, I recommend calling them back in 4 to 5 months. They're not putting it in their calendar. They're not, they're going to say, okay, it's March 11th, so 6 months. You're not going to call me before, September 11th. So put them in for August 11th. Put them in for July 11th. Don't call them too soon, but, they're not going to remember that they said call me back in September. And even if they do, just say, oh, I'm sorry. I figured I should maybe give you a call a little bit earlier or, whatever. Just apologize and it'll be fine. I promise. Right? But if they say 6 months, call them back before 6 months. If they say end of the year, call them back before December. If they say call me back in 3 weeks, call them back in 2 weeks. If they say call me back in a month, call them back in 3 weeks. If they say call me back tomorrow, just call them back tomorrow. Right? But if it's far enough out that within reason you can move that a little bit closer to make sure that you're doing that. Same thing as lead generation, right? You're going to mirror their communication style, use their same words, use the same pace, the same tone. If they speak in a lower tone of voice, maybe lower the tone of your voice a little bit. Or if they speak in a little bit higher tone of voice, then heighten the tone of your voice as well, right? So you want to mirror and match the way that they speak, because people are comfortable with people like them. And some people get very uncomfortable with people that are not like them. So lead follow-up, very, very important. Now, let's say you're in your lead follow-up or you're in your lead generation and you get the appointment. Well, when you're on the appointment, you better communicate clearly, right? Because if you don't, then you're not going to get the agreement that you're looking to get on that appointment. Why? Because if you don't give them, if they do not perceive confidence in you, or they don't have confidence that you can actually do the job that they would be hiring you for, then they're not going to sign. They're going to find a way to politely shuffle you out the door. Now, what do you do if you get an appointment with somebody that says, well, we're not going to be quite ready, but you can come by, you can take a look at my place and let me know what you think? If it was me, I would go on that appointment and I would still try to get the listing right there, right? Unless there was a valid reason why they wouldn't, but I am always going to want to get in front of somebody. What do you do with the buyer when the buyer lead comes in and they want to look at a property, right? It's the Spider-Man concept. Everybody gets one, right? So what you will meet them to show them the first property. Me personally, I don't screen the buyer the first time. If a buyer lead comes in, they want to look at a property, I'm not asking them, are you pre-qualified? Are you paying cash? What's your credit score? What's this? What's that? Because I don't have a relationship with them yet, and that's the quickest way to ruin that relationship. They'll just call another agent. They're going to call me about a property. I'm going to ask them, when do you want to see the property? Would you like to schedule a preview of the property? What day and time works for you? Let me work on that. I'll let you know. When I get them to that property, that's my job now to get the agency agreement signed in the parking lot. Otherwise, we can't go look at this property. And that's also the point where I'm going to start screening them. Are you cash? Are you finance? Do you have a lender? Who are you working with? Right? The only thing you would probably need to ask them is, are you working with another real estate agent at the moment? Have you signed anything? Make sure that you're not showing a property to somebody who already has, an agreement in place, right? But when you're on the appointment, same thing, communication style, right? Set the appointment, get there. You want to arrive early because that says something about who you are. You don't want to arrive excessively early. You probably want to drive around the neighborhood a little bit if you're not familiar with the neighborhood, right? And then you want to have an idea on the flow of this meeting. Same thing, you're always mirroring and matching them. You walk the way they walk, you talk the way they talk, you sit the way they sit. You have the same mannerisms as them because they're going to get comfortable with you, right? You're always going to mirror and match their verbal language and their body language. Everything you can mirror and match with them, you're going to do it. You're going to get to, so when I go on listing appointments, the first thing I want to do is I want to see the house. And I'm communicating what I'm thinking as we're walking throughout the house. Wow, this is great. I really like this. This is nice. This is going to help with this. This is here. This is there. Have you thought about doing this? What are we doing about this? Is there something wrong with this? It's communication. They want to hear your thoughts. You don't just walk through like a zombie, get through the house. Okay, let's sit down. You want to be giving them feedback, speaking with them, right? Asking them more questions. Okay, so you just mentioned you're going up to Orlando. Are you going to be buying when you go up there, or are you looking to rent? Why is that important? Because every little detail is going to help you figure out where's their timeline and where are they at in this process. Also, if they're going to buy up there, hey, can I refer an agent to you up there? Do you have somebody in place already? If not, maybe you can get a referral agreement, right? Get to the listing presentation, you better be prepared. I talk about 3 things in the listing presentation. Some of them I don't really spend that much time on. I don't spend a lot of time on the marketing plan. I go over that pretty quickly, right? Why? Because every agent is going to go over how great and amazing their marketing plan is. But really, the only thing that the customer wants to know is, how much will my house sell for and how much will I walk away with? right? So we go over price versus value, and I make sure they understand that. I communicate that well. I tell them, these listings that have sold, tell us the value. These listings that are active, tell us, where we need to place it based on the price. So I'm going to give you a value range, and we're going to see where that value range fits into the price range. And this is where our strategic placement becomes key, right? And then I talk about myself a little bit, why I would be, the best qualified to sell their property. I don't sit there and, tell them how great and amazing I am about everything, but I do let them know the experience level that I have. And I try to find that pain point from them and how I can be the one that can solve them. And then active listening and confirm that you're understanding. If you say something and then they say something back, repeat it back to them. Affirm what they just said. Understand their reasons. Don't try to, knock it down and minimize. And, you do not want to become argumentative at any point. Our job is to seek to understand. If you don't understand what they're saying, or you don't necessarily agree, then get them clarification, because maybe they're miscommunicating and you just need to get yourself to understand, right? So always, always, always. And then what are you doing on the appointment? You are closing for that contract. This is your first appointment, let's say. So you have a listing contract to sign or a buyer agency agreement to get signed, right? You're always going to close for that contract. If they're not ready, then what do? You take it back to the lead follow-up stage. Then they become lead follow-up. But let's say you're going to write the contract, right? So you're going to write a listing contract or a buyer agency contract. Well, keep in mind, that's only one contract to write. The other contract you need is the purchase and sale contract. So even though you have a listing, your work is not done. Even though you have a buyer agency agreement, your work is not done. You still have one more contract, right? But let's say this is your first contract, right? On the first contract that you're going to do, right? What are you trying to do, right? Well, you're trying to get them the best deal, right? You're trying to get this thing to the closing table, right? You're giving them updates. So, even if you're working with a buyer, you still want to be regularly communicating with the buyer. You want to be sending them properties regularly. You want to talk about the market and where the market's going. Interest rates are a little bit lower. Now might be a time to really double down. I actually just reached out to a buyer that we were speaking with early last year. She couldn't get the property that she wanted, so she decided to hold off. But what's happening right now is I'm telling my buyers that now is a great time to buy. And that's the truth. I absolutely believe that now is a great time to buy. Interest rates have been coming down regularly for I don't know how long, but interest rates are as low as they've been in, I don't know, quite a while. So, that makes affordability a little bit better. There's higher than normal inventory sitting on the market. That means buyers have options, and that means sellers are they're getting lost. The listings are kind of getting lost and everything else because there's not enough buyers out there to buy up this inventory fast enough. So you have high inventory, interest rates that are beginning to creep down, and a lot of people that haven't figured this out yet. Now would be the time to reach out to your buyers and let them know, hey, now might be a great time to buy a property. What if they're in the market for a condo? It's an even better time to buy a condo right now because there's a lot of things working against the condo now that this time next year will not be working against them. Communicate that to your customers. See if you can get another contract, right? When you're filling out the contracts, make sure they understand the contract and they understand the process. Make sure that they understand what is expected of them through the contract. Make sure they understand any fees, anything. Do not try to cover up anything. You disclose, and you disclose. There is literally nothing that should not be communicated that in this contract process. Literally everything. put yourself in that customer's shoes. If they get hit with some hidden fee that they didn't know about, or if you get hit with a hidden fee, are you happy? You're not. It's not worth it. Disclose literally everything. And then if they have questions, answer their questions. Answer them, politely, answer them calmly, answer them respectively. Make sure to maintain these things, right? And if they text you, they email you, whatever, make sure you're responding, quickly. Get back to people very fast. Be the person that has the reputation of fast responses. Be that person, because then they know they can count on you. Don't be the person that people have to wait a day or 2 days or longer to get a response. That annoys people. We live in, they used to call it, the microwave mentality, where, it used to take hours and hours to prepare and cook dinner, and now people can just pop a meal in the microwave and it's done in 5 minutes or less, right? There's that microwave. People want answers right now. They can go on Google, they can Google the question and get the answer. They can go on social media, and they can, they could probably find somebody they follow that will give them the answer. They should not wait for an answer from you. They want an answer right now. I don't care who they are. They want the answer right now. And it is not okay if you have a customer that communicates slowly. This is the time where you do not want to mirror and match them. You do not want to be a slow communicator. Be a fast communicator for a number of reasons. You also don't want to forget to get back to somebody. But just make sure as you're writing the contract, as you're going through it, that they completely understand everything that's going on with it. Now, when you get to that next contract, your next job is to close it, right? So when you get to the closing stage, you now have a purchase and sale contract, right? Well, your job now is to close that contract, right? So you have to clear all contingencies, and you want to make sure throughout this process that you have exceeded their expectations. This is the biggest area where I think communication breaks down. This is the area where communication fails, is once we get a property under contract, whether it's a buyer or a seller, where an agent fails is they're not communicating with now your customer. So that makes it your job to communicate with the customer. And unless you have somebody in place that's going to communicate in your place, then you need to be the one to communicate with this customer, right? What are you trying to do? You want to get the deal closed, right? And you want, so when you're running into things, make sure you're just communicating it quickly. The other thing in this case, make sure you're communicating with all parties. Don't leave the title company waiting on information. Maybe they need the contact information of your customer. Don't leave the lender waiting for any information. Maybe they need the contract. Make sure you send the contract to the lender and the title company for that matter, right? And make sure you're doing things quickly and ahead of time. Don't wait until the last minute. Just get things done, right? GSD, get stuff done. All day, that's the motto. That's the motto. That's the motto. Get stuff done. All day, if there's a task that needs to be done, you're just going to get it done, right? Always patient and professional. We are professional. I will tell you on a side note, we on a day-to-day basis deal with so many people. And we can deal with some very unprofessional people. We can deal with some very erratic people. But our job is to have a high EQ. Our emotional quotient needs to be high. So when we deal with that difficult person, yeah, we might get frustrated. We might be annoyed. We might even get angry. But that does not lose their cool. A professional will always be calm. It will always behave rationally. And that will reflect in the transaction. I promise that it will, right? So even if you're dealing with a very, very difficult agent, it is not your job to get upset and yell and scream at that agent. It is your job to convey the message, whatever it is they said, in the most professional manner possible to your customer, and then let your customer make that decision, right? Don't let your emotions kill your deal. Communication matters, especially when you're dealing with a difficult person. Can you take a difficult situation and de-escalate it and bring it down? Can you take, somebody being upset and angry, at you, and turn it around and end that call on a good note? That should be the goal of every piece of communication throughout this contract process. Everybody is your friend and nobody is your enemy, because everybody, buyer, seller, lender, attorney, title company, insurance, they all want this contract to close. And if there's one person that doesn't want the contract to close, then it's going to get very difficult. And if it's a buyer or a seller that doesn't want it to close, then it's probably not going to close, because that's the two most important things. Your job is to keep your customer informed in a rational, professional manner, regardless of what's going on. We are the calm in the storm, right? So yeah, be human, right? And make sure that in this entire process, if there's something that they need to know, that they know it right away, that there's no delay on the conveyance of this message over them, right? So what about when it's closed? What are you doing then? Are you done? Never talk to that person again? I hope not, because for me, my past clients, I consider them probably some of the best customers that I have. I get a lot of return business. And why does somebody return to you? Because you gave them great service, which means you gave them great communication. When you communicate with somebody through the entire process and they understand everything that's going on, and you make it easy for them to understand, and you don't bring the drama over to them, and that feels like a smooth, clean transaction, they will absolutely think about you again when it's time to sell, assuming, or when it's time to buy or sell or refer, assuming you actually kept in touch with them. If you don't keep in touch with them after closing, they might not remember your name, right? They might say, oh, I had a great agent, but I don't remember what his name was. Let me see if I could find it, right? You need to build that loyalty into them to receive that referral business. And you also need to continue to stay in touch with them, right? Thanksgiving is a big one for me. I send a lot of text messages on Thanksgiving generally. And I send a gratitude text message. It doesn't take me long, not something that, whatever. And I try to personalize it just a little bit. Your past clients want personal. They don't want spam. They want stuff that speaks to them. Why? Because they've made you money. They have earned a spot in that personal level, right? Let them know. If you need a vendor, I've got customers still that call me, and because they know that the people that I work with are quality people. If they need a plumber, if they need an electrician, if they need a photographer, if they need a roofer, a landscaper, whatever they need, they know that they can reach out to me, and I'm going to get them somebody quality. And if I don't have it, I'm not going to make it up, and I'm not going to give it to them. I'm just going to tell them I don't have anybody like that right now, because I don't always have everybody, but I do try to have a large database of professionals, especially in the real estate industry, that I can refer to my customers that hopefully will make me look good, and my customers will continue to think about me when they have a need. So, post-closing, very, very important. Keep in touch. Have a system. Have a system for post-closing. These are what are they? They're your past clients, right? Past clients are very, very important. You need to make sure that, your past clients have consistent touch points, right? These are the people, the past clients are what makes your real estate business easier as time goes on, because they may buy something else. They may sell the property that they purchased through you. They are that referral source. They are the repeating business. So past clients are your gold, and you need to make sure that you're keeping in touch with your past clients. How often? I don't know. Consistently though. And this is where you need to know your client. How do they prefer to communicate? Are they text message? Are they phone call? Are they email? Are they social media? Are you friends with them on social media? Do you like their posts? Do you engage with them on social media? Right now, for me, when a customer is just a customer, I don't necessarily try to build, a friendship with them. But once they're after a customer, hey, you could become friends with your past clients, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that. This is my personal belief is on your first transaction at least, you want to keep it professional from all the way through. But if after that you want to be, friends with them and do other stuff, it's totally acceptable. Right now, some people maybe become friends with a customer before they close. Right? I don't know. That's fine. If it works for you, that's fine. You have to figure out what works for you and your style. But for me, I like to wait until the first transaction at least closes so they don't feel like they're doing a transaction with their friend. And maybe me, myself, even personally, I don't get too loose with this transaction. Right. And then over time, you're going to build that genuine relationship. You're going to provide value to them over and over and over, right? Make those connections and make sure your stuff is relevant and tailored to them. And just make sure that you're keeping in touch with your customers. What about when a transaction doesn't work out? Not everything closes. Not everything always works out. Sometimes we can feel like we're the ones that failed in a transaction. And, that could be a terrible, terrible feeling, just feeling like, this one should have closed. And if I was a little bit better, I would have gotten it done. Right. But we have to get over that and you have to maintain the relationship with that person as well. Right. You want to continue to check in with them. Hey, I know this one didn't work out, but we can still continue to move on. Right. We can still continue to look for properties. We can still market your property for sale. You need to continue because maybe that pain point didn't go away, right? Figure out how to maintain that relationship. Keep that relationship going. Keep the conversations going. Keep the person talking, right? Don't let them lose trust in you and who you are and how you do business just because of this one thing. Keep that relationship alive. Canceled transactions. It's just another means. It's just another checkpoint along the way. Canceled can easily turn into a live contract again. So if a contract cancels, don't just let it fizzle out. Right, keep it going. So what should you do today? Right, what is the call to action for today's training? Right, so we've got 4 R's that we want you to think about. But the number one thing is, do you have a system for communication in place? Think about all of the different types of clients and relationships that you have in your business. From leads just in there, maybe they've never answered, maybe they've never anything. How are you communicating with them? Maybe at least through email, right? Leads that you are talking to. How are you communicating with the leads that you're actively following up on? Maybe you're sending them properties, right? Maybe they're getting holiday emails from you, maybe the occasional text message, and they should be receiving a phone call because that's the follow-up method, right? So what about leads that you've gotten an appointment with, but you didn't get the listing? You should definitely have a communication system in place. That didn't get the listing, now they go back and do a follow-up campaign. What is your follow-up campaign? How frequently are you reaching out to people, and at what medium are you using? You can call them, text them, email them. You can get them on social media. There's a thousand different ways. You can mail if you want. There's multiple ways that you can reach out to people and communicate and connect with people, right? And how often are you doing it? Past clients, are you touching base with them regularly? Are you emailing them? Are you calling them? Are you giving your past clients any value? Right? What are how are you doing that? Your leads that you're talking to now, why would they choose you over another real estate agent? There needs to be a communication system in place no matter where that customer is in your pipeline. And when they move from one area to the next, you need to update that communication system. Because if you have a customer in a lead generate pipeline that moves to under contract, but you continue to send them lead generation emails, it's not relevant to where they are now. So make sure that you've got separate email series if you're doing that you're sending to the different people. But this is where you really need to evaluate where you're at with all of these different areas. And if you need help, reach out to us. Let us know. We'll show you what we do and how we do it. Are we perfect? No, we are not. Absolutely, we are not. But we do try, and we are constantly improving our systems to do just a little bit better, right? So today, number one, make sure all of your clients, all of your contacts, your sphere of influence, your vendors, your friends, your family, make sure everybody is in your CRM. And ensure that they all have some sort of campaign and follow-up reminders, because you should be reaching out to them regularly to do what? Asking for business, asking for referrals, right? You're building this relationship. Everybody that you know, you should, when somebody asks them, do you know a real estate agent? Your name should at least come to mind. Your name should at least come to mind as a real estate agent that they know. Are you the one that they're going to choose? I don't know, maybe not, right? But your name should come to mind. And if you have enough touch points, you will. If you have a network, right? Remember, your network is your net worth. The people that you're around will affect your net worth. They're going to affect your income. So everybody in your network should know that you're an agent. They should be receiving something. If they own a home, look them up in the tax rolls and put them into a property valuation report and send them a report on the value of their property. Doesn't matter, right? Like our CRM does that automatically for everybody. If you're talking to an expired, they should be in there. They should be in that property valuation. A for sale by owner, they should be receiving property valuations. Should they be receiving market reports on what's going on in their neighborhood, their subdivision, their area code, right? Should they be receiving something? I think they should. There's things that you can do, and a lot of this is set it and forget it. And then all you got to do is pick up the phone on a somewhat regular basis, but not too much, and keep in touch with them. Build that relationship. This is your action plan. This is what I would encourage everybody to do. Put your leads, put your contacts into a CRM. Make sure they're in a campaign. Make sure you've got some sort of follow-up reminder, whether it's today, tomorrow, next month, end of this year, whatever it is that you're going to physically do something. Send them a text message, make a phone call, pick up the phone and just do it. Enter them in, set them up. Enter them in, set them up. That's communication. If they're sitting in your contacts on your phone, they're not going to do you any good. Just put them in there. You'll be surprised at the outcome that you get. That's all I have. Does anybody have, I didn't see any questions that came up, but does anybody have any questions, any comments, or any areas of communication that we missed? All right. Well, that's it then, guys. One more shameless plug. For anybody that stuck around until the end of this, you can always scan this QR code right here. If you want to learn more about Miranda and see how we can help you. And for the agents, just a reminder, we are doing revenue share. We are now a revenue share company. We've had a few agents that have already come in through revenue share. So if you're looking for an extra stream of income to add to your income by sponsoring an agent and them joining this company, we do participate in revenue share, and if you believe in the company and you believe in what we're doing, it should be a pretty easy sale, I think. So last thing, 2 weeks from now, we'll be doing our next Ask the Broker. So that's going to be on the 25th. The next week is going to be the roundtable mastermind that we're doing. That's actually open to agents outside of Miranda Executive Realty as well. So if you come across an agent that you think might benefit from that, please feel free to invite them to that. Other than that, guys, this is all we got. So thank you so much for showing up. We appreciate it. If you need anything, please visit us in the lobby. Reach out to us. Above all, don't stay stuck. Have a great week. Talk to you all soon.